caught my husband and my sister in the storage room having an affair. I didn't make a scene. I didn't scream. I simply locked the door with a padlock, cut the power, and called her husband to come and fix a short circuit. My name is Vanessa. I am 38 years old, and I am the owner of V's Kitchen, the most exclusive soul food restaurant empire in Atlanta. If you are listening to this, you probably think you know what betrayal feels like. You might think you have seen it all. But trust me when I tell you that you have never seen a woman turn her anniversary party into a crime scene without spilling a single drop of champagne. If you want to see exactly how I took down the two people I loved the most in this world, make sure you listen to every single word of this story. It started 20 minutes ago. The bass from the live jazz band was vibrating through the floorboards of my 3-story estate in Buckhead. I had 500 guests upstairs drinking my best liquor and eating my food. It was our 10th wedding anniversary. 10 years of me building this life, and 10 years of Dante pretending he helped. I had gone down to the basement to check on the inventory. I am a perfectionist. That is how I made my millions. I wanted to make sure the extra crates of A5 Japanese Wagyu beef were properly stored for the main course. The basement was quiet. The hum of the industrial walk-in freezer was usually a comforting sound to me. It sounded like money. It sounded like success. But as I turned the corner, I saw something that made the world stop spinning. The heavy steel door of the freezer was slightly ajar. Through the vertical strip of safety glass, I saw them. Dante, my husband. The man whose suit I paid for. The man whose car note I pay every month. He was pressed up against the metal shelving, and wrapped around him with her legs hooked around his waist was Chloe, my baby sister. Baby. My own flesh and blood. The little girl I put through college. The woman whose credit card debt I paid off 3 times. They were going at it right on top of a stack of $50 a pound beef crates. Most women would have kicked that door open. Most women would have dragged them out by their hair and caused a scene that would have ended up on every blog in Atlanta by midnight. But I am not most women. I am a business owner. I deal with problems strategically. I watched them for exactly 10 seconds. I watched my husband kiss my sister's neck with a passion he hadn't shown me in 5 years. I watched my sister claw at his back wearing the diamond bracelet I bought her for her birthday. The rage did not feel like fire. It felt like ice. It felt exactly like the temperature inside that freezer. I stepped forward quietly. My heels didn't make a sound on the concrete floor because I know how to move in silence. I grabbed the heavy iron handle of the freezer door. I didn't slam it. I pushed it shut with a firm, decisive click. The magnetic seal engaged instantly. Then came the best part. I took the heavy-duty master lock that hangs on the side of the frame, the one we use when the catering staff goes home, and I slid the shackle through the latch. I spun the dial. Click. Locked. They were inside. Soundproof. Airtight. I wasn't done. I walked over to the electrical panel on the far wall. I found the breaker labeled Walk-In Cooler. I flipped the switch. The hum of the compressor died instantly. The fan that circulates the air inside stopped. Now it was just a sealed, dark metal box. The temperature would hold at a freezing 10 degrees for hours, but the oxygen that would start to get thin very quickly. And the darkness would be absolute. They wanted privacy. I gave them privacy. I smoothed down my silk dress. I checked my makeup in the reflection of the breaker box. I looked perfect. Not a hair out of place. I turned around and walked back up the stairs, leaving my husband and my sister trapped in the dark, freezing cold, huddled together on top of raw meat. When I opened the door to the main hallway, the noise of the party hit me. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. It was a celebration of love, and the guests had no idea the guests of honor were currently turning into popsicles downstairs. Vanessa. There you are. It was Lydia, one of my oldest friends. She was holding a glass of Pinot Grigio and looking around. Where is that handsome husband of yours? We're ready for the toasts. I smiled. It was my best smile. The smile I use when I'm firing a chef who stole from me. Oh, you know Dante, I said, my voice smooth as velvet. He is downstairs checking on a surprise for the main course. He wants everything to be perfect for tonight. He is such a good man, Lydia sighed. You are so lucky, V. A man who supports your business and looks that good in a tuxedo, girl. You won the lottery. I sure did, I said, taking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. I certainly got exactly what I paid for. I walked through the crowd, nodding at investors, waving at my cousins. My heart rate was steady. I pulled my phone out of my clutch. My hands weren't shaking. I unlocked the screen and scrolled to my contacts. I didn't call the police. I didn't call security. I called the one person who could make this situation hurt the most. I dialed Kyle. Kyle is Chloe's husband, my brother-in-law. He is a white guy from the suburbs, a blue-collar man who owns his own HVAC and electrical company. He is the sweetest, most hardworking man I know. He worships the ground Chloe walks on. He works 60 hours a week to fund her lifestyle, to buy her the designer bags she posts on Instagram. And she treats him like an accessory she is embarrassed to be seen with. The phone rang twice. Rang. "Hey, Vanessa?" Kyle's voice sounded tired. In the background, I could hear the TV playing cartoons. He was babysitting their 2 kids while his wife was supposedly out. "Kyle, I am so sorry to bother you on a Saturday night," I said, injecting just the right amount of panic into my voice. "I have a major emergency at the house." "What's wrong? Is everyone okay?" he asked instantly. That is who Kyle is, always ready to help. "It's the walk-in freezer," I lied effortlessly. "The one in the basement. I think the electrical system just shorted out. The breaker popped, the lights are dead, and the electronic keypad is fried. The door won't open. It's completely jammed." "Oh no," Kyle said. "Is there product inside?" "Kyle, there is $50,000 worth of Wagyu beef and imported truffles in there," I said. "If that meat spoils, I lose the entire catering contract for next month. Plus, it's the main course for the anniversary dinner tonight." I am freaking out. Okay, calm down, V, Kyle said. I could hear him grabbing his keys. "I can be there in 20 minutes. I'll bring the heavy-duty drills and the override kit. Don't worry, I'll get it open." "You are a lifesaver, Kyle," I said. "Thank you so much. Oh, and Kyle. By the way, how is Chloe enjoying the spa day? I tried to call her to ask her something, but she didn't pick up." There was a pause on the line. "Yeah, she texted me a few hours ago, saying she was getting a massage and then going to grab dinner with some of her influencer friends. She probably has her phone off. I'll tell her you called when she gets home." "Right," I said. "The spa. Well, drive safe, Kyle. I'll see you soon." I hung up the phone. The spa. My sister told her hard-working husband she was at a spa while she was actually downstairs in my basement screwing my husband. The level of disrespect was breathtaking. But Kyle was coming, and Kyle was the best technician in the state. He would open that door, and when he did, he wouldn't find spoiled beef. He would find his wife wrapped in my husband's arms. I had about 20 minutes before the show started. I decided to enjoy my party. I walked into the grand ballroom. The chandelier was sparkling. My cousin Sharonda waved me over. She was standing with my mother. Now you have to understand my mother. Mama Louise is the kind of woman who believes a man is the head of the household even if he doesn't bring home a dime. She has always favored Chloe. Chloe was the pretty one, the soft one, the one who needed protecting. I was the strong one, the ATM machine. "Vanessa," Mama Louise said, looking me up and down, "why isn't Dante standing next to you? It looks bad. A wife shouldn't be greeting guests alone on her anniversary." "He's busy, Mama," I said, taking a sip of champagne. "He's working hard for this family." "Well, I hope he is," Mama Louise huffed. "And where is your sister? I haven't seen Chloe all night. She said she was coming early to help you set up." "I haven't seen her," I said. "Maybe she got lost." "You should be nicer to her," Mama Louise scolded me. "She looks up to you. She is trying so hard to build her brand on social media. You know you could invest more in her career. She needs a new studio. You have all this money and you act like Scrooge." I looked at my mother. I looked at the diamond necklace she was wearing. I bought that necklace. I looked at the dress she had on. I paid for that too. "I have given Chloe enough, Mama," I said. "Trust me. Tonight she's getting everything she deserves." "You always have to be so difficult." Mama Louise rolled her eyes. "By the way, Dante told me he is thinking about expanding the business, opening a second location in Midtown. I think it's a great idea. You should let him lead that project. Give him some authority. A man needs to feel like a king." I almost laughed out loud. A king. My husband was currently shivering in the dark, probably realizing by now that the door wasn't just stuck, but locked. I wondered if the cold had started to seep into his bones yet. I wondered if Chloe was crying. She hates the cold. She complains if the AC is set below 72. "We can talk about business later," I said. "Right now, let's enjoy the party." I moved away from my mother before I said something I would regret. I needed to maintain the facade. I needed witnesses. I needed everyone to see me as the loving, oblivious wife, right up until the moment the bomb exploded. I circulated the room. I accepted compliments. I hugged people I didn't like. "Happy anniversary, Vanessa. 10 years, that is a milestone. You two are couple goals." Couple goals, that's what they called us. On Instagram, Dante and I were the power couple of Atlanta black business. We posted photos of our vacations in Cabo, our matching Mercedes, our perfect smiles. But nobody saw the reality. Nobody saw me staying up until 4 a.m. doing the payroll because Dante forgot. Nobody saw me covering his mistakes when he ordered the wrong inventory. Nobody saw me transferring money into his personal account so his card wouldn't get declined when he went out with his boys. I created Dante. I polished him up. I put him in a suit. I gave him a title. And how did he repay me? By sleeping with the one person I thought would always have my back. I checked my watch. 10 minutes passed. Kyle would be close. I imagined what was happening downstairs. By now the panic would be setting in. The freezer is soundproof, but they would still be screaming, banging on the door. Dante would be trying to use his shoulder to ram it open, but that door is reinforced steel designed to keep the cold in. It wouldn't budge. The oxygen levels would be dropping slightly, not enough to kill them yet, but enough to make breathing feel heavy. The darkness would be disorienting. And the cold. 10 degrees Fahrenheit is painful. It bites your skin. They were probably huddled together for warmth. The irony was delicious. The heat of their affair was the only thing keeping them from hypothermia. "Attention, everyone!" The DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. "Can we get everyone to the main staircase? It's time for the anniversary toast." This was it. The timing was perfect. I walked to the center of the room. The spotlight hit me. I looked up at the hundreds of faces looking back at me. They saw a successful, beautiful woman. They didn't see the executioner standing in their midst. I took the microphone. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady. 10 years ago, I made a promise to love, honor, and cherish. I took those vows seriously. I built this home, this business, and this life on the foundation of loyalty. Loyalty is everything to me. Without loyalty, you have nothing. The crowd murmured in agreement. "Amen," someone shouted. "Tonight was supposed to be a celebration of that love," I continued. "But sometimes life gives you a surprise. Sometimes the truth is hidden in the dark, and you have to be the one to bring it into the light." I saw headlights flash through the front window. A white van with the logo, Kyle's Heating and Cooling, pulled into the driveway. And sometimes, I smiled a genuine cold smile. God sends a handyman to fix what is broken. I handed the microphone back to the DJ. "Enjoy the appetizers, everyone. I have a small maintenance issue to attend to downstairs, but don't worry, you are all going to want to see this." I turned and walked toward the basement door. Kyle was already at the front entrance, looking frantic, carrying a heavy red toolbox and a large industrial drill. He looked out of place in his gray work uniform, covered in grease stains, surrounded by people in tuxedos. But to me, he looked like an angel of justice. "I'm here, Vanessa," Kyle called out, breathless. I came as fast as I could. "Thank you, Kyle," I said loud enough for the guests nearby to hear. "Follow me. It's in the basement, and hurry. We don't want the meat to rot." I led him down the stairs. The party noise faded as we descended. The air got cooler. I could feel the anticipation bubbling in my chest. This wasn't just a door opening. This was the end of my marriage, the end of my relationship with my sister, and the beginning of my revenge. And the best part, they had done it to themselves. I just turned the key. The DJ booth was elevated on a small platform overlooking the ballroom, a perfect vantage point to see the kingdom I had built. DJ Kev, a man I had hired for every major event for the past 5 years, saw me approaching. He lowered the volume on the track just slightly, giving me a nod of respect. "Yo, Vanessa," he said, leaning over the console. "Dante left his phone up here about 20 minutes ago when he was requesting that Luther Vandross song. I figured he would be back for it, but I haven't seen him." I reached out my hand. The device was a black iPhone Pro Max, the latest model, encased in sleek leather. I knew exactly how much it cost because I was the one who paid the bill every month. "Thanks, Kev," I said, my voice perfectly even. "I will get it to him. He is just handling some business downstairs." I took the phone. It felt heavy in my palm, heavier than just glass and metal. It felt like a weapon. I turned my back to the crowd, stepping into the shadow of a large floral arrangement. The screen was dark, locked. To anyone else, this was just a brick. But Dante was a man of habit, and he was a man who enjoyed his liquor a little too much on the weekends. I didn't need to guess the passcode. I didn't need to hack it. I remembered a night 3 weeks ago. Dante had come home from a supposed business dinner, stumbling through the front door smelling of expensive cognac and a perfume that was definitely not mine. He had collapsed onto the sofa in our living room, passing out before he could even loosen his tie. I had sat there watching him for a long time. I watched his chest rise and fall. I watched the man I had vowed to spend my life with, and I felt a knot of suspicion tightening in my stomach. It wasn't just a feeling, it was an instinct. That night, while he snored with his mouth open, I had gently lifted his right hand. His thumb was limp. I pressed it against the sensor. The phone unlocked instantly. I didn't snoop that night. I didn't look at a single message. Instead, I went straight to the settings. I went to Face ID and passcode. I added an alternate appearance. I scanned my own face. Then, just to be safe, I added my own thumbprint as fingerprint too. He never checked. He was too arrogant to think I would ever invade his privacy, and too stupid to realize that a smart woman always secures a backup key. Now, standing in the corner of my anniversary party, I held the phone up to my face. The padlock icon at the top of the screen unlocked. Swipe up. I was in. I didn't go to the photos first. Photos can be explained away. Photos can be misinterpreted. I went straight to the messages. I saw a thread pinned to the top. The contact name was saved simply as C, no emoji, no heart, just C. I tapped it. The messages scrolled down the screen, hundreds of them. Thousands of words exchanged between my husband and my sister. I started reading from the most recent. Sent. Today, 6:45 p.m., Dante. The old girl is wearing that red dress again. She looks like she's trying too hard. I can't wait to get this over with. Chloe. Just smile and wave, baby. Remember the prize. Make sure you get her to the basement like we planned. I need you. My stomach didn't drop. It turned into concrete. The old girl. That is what he called me. I am 38. He is 40. I look better on my worst day than he has ever looked on his best, but in their little world I was the ancient obstacle standing in the way of their happiness. I scrolled back further. I needed to see the scope of this. I needed to understand the timeline. Sent yesterday, 10:30 a.m. Chloe. Did you talk to the lawyer? Are we sure about the timing, Dante? Yeah, he said we have to wait until Tuesday. She signs the franchise deal with the investors on Monday morning. That is when the $5 million wires into the joint business account. If I file for divorce before the ink is dry, I get half of that $5 million plus half the existing assets. Chloe. $5 million. God, I can finally quit that stupid Instagram hustle. I want a house in Buckhead D, not a condo. A real house. Dante. You will get the house, baby. You will get everything. Just let me handle Vanessa. She trusts me. She thinks I am the perfect husband. I stared at the screen. The lights of the party blurred in my peripheral vision. This wasn't just infidelity. This was grand larceny. This was a premeditated heist. For months, I had been working 18-hour days to close the franchise deal for V's Kitchen. I had flown to New York, met with investors, negotiated contracts, and stressed over every detail. Dante had been there, nodding and smiling, bringing me coffee, playing the supportive role. All the while, he was counting the days until he could steal the fruits of my labor. He wasn't just breaking my heart. He was planning to bankrupt me. He wanted to take the money I earned with my blood and sweat and use it to buy a mansion for my lazy, entitlement-riddled sister. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. They had discussed the nuances of Georgia divorce law. They had calculated the exact moment to strike to maximize their payout. They viewed me not as a wife or a sister, but as a harvest. I was a crop to be cut down and sold. I kept scrolling. I needed more. I needed something that would ensure they never saw a dime. And then I found it, a text from 2 days ago. It was an image. It was a picture of a digital pregnancy test. The word pregnant was clearly visible on the small screen. Chloe. We did it, baby. I went to the doctor today to confirm. 6 weeks along. Dante, are you serious? Oh my God. A son. Chloe. Too early to tell the gender, but I feel it. It is a boy, a little prince to inherit the empire. Dante. This changes everything. We have to be careful. If she finds out before the divorce, she might try to cut me out of the will or move the assets. Chloe, she won't find out. She is too busy working. She is barren, Dante. She can't give you what I can give you. We are going to have a real family. I stopped breathing for a moment. The air in the room felt thin, barren. That was the word that cut deepest. Dante and I had tried for years to have children. We went to specialists. We did IVF. It never took. I blamed myself. I cried myself to sleep countless nights apologizing to him for not being able to give him a child. He would hold me and tell me it didn't matter that we were enough for each other. It was all a lie. He had been despising me for it. And now he had impregnated my own sister. They were building a dynasty on the ashes of my self-esteem. They were planning to raise their child with my money in a house paid for by my restaurant while laughing at the barren ex-wife who made it all possible. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't a sob, it was a laugh. A dark, cold, terrifying laugh that didn't make it to my lips. It stayed inside, fueling the fire that was now burning through my veins. They thought they had all the leverage. They thought they were the smartest people in the room. They thought a pregnancy was their ace in the hole, a way to secure Dante's claim to my fortune, even if the divorce got messy. But they forgot one thing. They forgot who they were dealing with. I didn't just build a business. I built a fortress. And I knew how to defend it. My thumb flew across the screen. I didn't just read the messages. I documented them. I opened the Photos app and selected every single screenshot I had just taken. I selected the videos they had sent each other, videos I couldn't bring myself to watch right now, but knew would be useful in court. I selected the audio messages where they mocked my mother, mocked my cooking, mocked the way I walked. I hit the share button. I airdropped everything to my own phone. Then I opened his email app. I forwarded every email thread with his secret divorce lawyer to my secure server. I found the draft of the purchase agreement for the house. They were looking at a $2.5 million estate in Tuxedo Park. I forwarded that too. I was methodical. I was precise. I was a surgeon removing a tumor. I saw a notification pop up on his screen from his banking app. A transfer of $5,000 to Chloe Matthews. Memo for the spa day. So that is how she paid for the hair and nails she was wearing while she slept with my husband. My money. It always came back to my money. I looked at the time. It had been 7 minutes since I took the phone. Downstairs, the temperature in the freezer would be holding steady at 10 degrees. They would be realizing by now that this wasn't a joke. The adrenaline of their illicit hookup would be wearing off, replaced by the biting reality of the cold. Dante's tuxedo was thin. Chloe's dress was practically non-existent. I wondered if they were texting each other in the dark, trying to figure out a way out. But they couldn't. I had his phone. And Chloe. Her phone was likely in her purse, which was sitting in the guest bedroom upstairs where she had left her coat. They were cut off from the world. No lifeline, no lawyer, no transfer of funds, just the cold and the truth. I finished the transfer. I deleted the evidence of my transfer from his sent folder, though it didn't really matter. Once the forensic accountants got hold of this, it would all be over. But I liked to be neat. I looked at the phone one last time. The background wallpaper was a picture of his car. Not me. Not us. His car. A car I bought for his 40th birthday. That said everything I needed to know about Dante. He loved things. He loved status. He loved the appearance of wealth. He didn't love me. He didn't even love Chloe. He loved the ease of life I provided, and he loved the ego boost Chloe gave him. I wiped the screen with the hem of my silk dress, removing my fingerprints. I walked back to the DJ booth. "Hey, Kev," I said, handing the phone back to him. "You find him?" Kev asked, adjusting his headphones. "No," I said, my voice light and breezy. "He must still be busy with the staff. Just keep it here for him. If he comes looking for it, tell him I have it safe. Or actually, just keep it. He will probably come grab it after the toast." "You got it, boss lady," Kev said, sliding the phone onto the shelf behind the turntable. I walked away. I felt lighter. The sadness I expected to feel was absent. When you realize the people you love are actually monsters, you don't grieve the loss of the relationship. You grieve the loss of the time you wasted on them. I calculated it in my head. 10 years, 3,650 days. I would make them pay for every single one of those days. I walked toward the bar. I needed a drink. Not to dull the pain, but to sharpen my senses. I ordered a sparkling water with a twist of lime. I needed to be sober. I needed to be razor sharp. Kyle would be arriving any minute. The next phase of the plan was about to begin. The financial betrayal was the final nail in their coffin. If they had just cheated, I might have let them off with a standard divorce. I might have given Dante a settlement just to make him go away. But they wanted to destroy me. They wanted to steal my legacy. They wanted to humiliate me publicly and leave me with nothing. They had declared war. They just didn't realize that I was the one with the nuclear codes. I took a sip of my water. The bubbles fizzed against my tongue. I looked around the room at the expensive decor, the happy guests, the illusion of a perfect life. It was all about to shatter, and I was going to enjoy the sound of the glass breaking. "Vanessa, darling." It was Mrs. Higgins, the wife of one of my biggest investors. She was wearing a massive fur coat. "I heard a rumor about a big announcement tonight. Are you finally going to tell us about the expansion?" I smiled at her. It was a genuine smile this time. "Oh, Mrs. Higgins," I said, "the announcement tonight is going to be much bigger than a restaurant expansion. It is going to be unforgettable." "I love the drama," she laughed, clapping her hands. "You have no idea," I whispered to myself as she walked away. I checked my own phone. The download was complete. All the files were secure in my private cloud, password protected, and automatically forwarded to my personal attorney, David. I sent David a quick text: "Do not open the files I just sent you until I call you tomorrow morning. But prepare the papers. I want a forensic audit of the joint accounts starting Monday. And draft a restraining order. 2 of them." David replied instantly, "On it. Everything okay, V?" I typed back, "Everything is perfect. Just taking out the trash." I slipped my phone back into my clutch. The vibration of the music felt different now. It felt like a war drum. I was ready. I saw the headlights of Kyle's van sweep across the windows again. He was parking. The stage was set. The actors were in place. The audience was seated. It was time to raise the curtain on the second act. And unlike Dante and Chloe, I knew exactly how this play was going to end. I hadn't even finished my sparkling water before I felt the claw. It was a manicured hand adorned with a ruby ring that I had paid for last Christmas, gripping my bicep with surprising strength. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The scent of Chanel No. 5, applied a little too heavily, announced her presence before she even spoke. It was my mother, Mama Louise, the matriarch of our family and the undisputed queen of passive-aggressive manipulation. "Vanessa," she hissed, pulling me away from the bar and into a secluded alcove near the coat check. "We need to talk. Now." I looked at her. She was wearing a gold sequined gown that cost more than my first car. Her hair was laid to perfection, and her makeup was flawless. To the outside world, she looked like a supportive mother celebrating her daughter's success. To me, she looked like a bill collector in couture. "What is it, Mama?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "I have guests. I have investors here. Can this wait?" "No, it cannot wait," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "I just got off the phone with Chloe. She is crying, Vanessa. She is crying on her anniversary because she is so stressed out about money. Do you know how that feels, to worry about how you are going to keep the lights on?" I almost laughed. Chloe wasn't crying about lights. Chloe was currently locked in a freezer, and if she was crying, it was because her tears were starting to freeze to her cheeks. But Mama didn't know that. Mama thought Chloe was at a spa, suffering from the terrible affliction of not being a millionaire. She isn't picking up her phone. Mama Louise continued oblivious. I tried to call her back, and it went straight to voicemail. But before she hung up earlier, she told me she asked you for a loan last week, and you said no. Is that true? Did you really turn your back on your baby sister? I took a deep breath. This was the dynamic. It had been this way since we were kids. Chloe was the fragile princess who needed protection. I was the workhorse who needed to pull the cart. I didn't say no. Mama, I corrected her. I said I wasn't going to finance another vacation to Tulum while she is behind on her credit cards. There is a difference. Oh, listen to you, Mama scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. You sound just like your father, so cold, so calculating. You have all this Vanessa. She gestured around the room at the crystal chandeliers, the velvet drapes, the waiters circulating with trays of lobster tail. You are swimming in money. You just signed a $5 million deal, didn't you? Everybody is talking about it, and yet you can't spare a few thousand for your sister. She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. You have to understand, Vanessa. Chloe has it hard. She married that boy, that Kyle. She said Kyle's name like it was a dirty word. He is a good man, Mama, I said, defending the man who was currently rushing to save my life, unaware that I was the one who put the danger there. He works hard. He owns his own business. He is an electrician, Vanessa, she spat out. He crawls under houses. He comes home with dirt under his fingernails. He is a white boy from the suburbs who doesn't understand our world. He can't give Chloe the life she deserves. He can't give her this. She pointed at my diamond earrings. She deserves to shine, Vanessa. Just like you. It isn't fair that one sister is a queen and the other is a peasant just because she married for love. You need to fix it. You are the big sister. It is your job to fix it. I looked at my mother. Really looked at her. For 38 years, I had chased her approval. I had bought her houses, cars, clothes. I had put Chloe through private school. I had paid for Chloe's wedding to Kyle, even though Mama complained the whole time that the groom's side of the family served potato salad with raisins in it. I had done everything right. And yet here she was standing in my house, eating my food, drinking my liquor, and telling me that I was the villain because I wouldn't fund the lifestyle of the sister who was currently sleeping with my husband. The realization hit me harder than the cold air in the basement. My mother was an enabler. She wasn't just blind to Chloe's faults. She cultivated them. She had raised Chloe to be a parasite, and she had raised me to be the host. And she was angry, genuinely angry that the host was starting to close the bank. I felt a shift inside me. The last tether of guilt snapped. I didn't feel bad anymore. I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I felt powerful. You are right, Mama, I said, my voice smooth as silk. You are absolutely right. I have been selfish. I have been so focused on business that I forgot about family. Mama's face softened. She smiled, thinking she had won, thinking she had guilt-tripped me into writing another check. That's my girl, she said, patting my cheek. I knew you would see reason. So you will help her. You will help them get that house in Tuxedo Park. I leaned in close to her. I smiled the same smile I use when I am about to hostilely take over a competitor's lease. Don't worry, Mama, I whispered. I am going to give Chloe everything she deserves. In fact, I have prepared a surprise for her tonight, a gift that she will never, ever forget. Mama clapped her hands together. Oh, Vanessa, that is wonderful. Is it a check? Is it a car? It is better than a car, I said, stepping back. It is a lesson. I turned on my heel and walked away before she could ask any more questions. I needed to move. I needed to escalate the situation. The anger was humming in my veins now, a low, steady vibration. They wanted my life. They wanted my luxury. I was going to give them a taste of it, a taste they couldn't reach. I walked straight to the head of the catering staff, a tall man named Marcus, who had been managing my events for years. He was carrying a tray of fresh seafood. Marcus, I said, stopping him, change of plans. Yes, Mrs. Jones, he asked. You know that case of vintage Dom Perignon we were saving for the final toast, I asked. The 2008 vintage, yes ma'am. Open it now, I ordered. All of it. And I want you to take the seafood tower, the one with the jumbo shrimp, the crab legs, and the oysters on ice. I want you to take that and the champagne and set up a serving station right at the bottom of the main staircase. Marcus looked confused. The staircase, ma'am. But that leads to the basement hallway. It's a bit isolated from the main party. Exactly, I said. I want it right in front of the heavy steel door, the one to the pantry. But why, he asked, hesitating. Because I said, staring him dead in the eye, Dante is down there working on something special. And I want to make sure that when he comes out, he is greeted with the best. In fact, I want you to make sure the music is piped down there too. Ask the DJ to switch the zone speakers. Turn the volume up in the basement hallway. I want the party to come to him. Marcus nodded slowly. He knew better than to question me when I had that look in my eyes. Consider it done, boss. I watched him walk away to execute my orders. This was petty. This was cruel. And it was absolutely necessary. You see, the walk-in freezer is airtight, but it isn't soundproof to the immediate vicinity. If you are standing right outside the door, the vibrations travel. The heavy bass of the music would thump against the metal. The high-pitched clinking of crystal glasses would penetrate the seal. But the worst part would be the smell. The ventilation system for the basement hallway draws air from the main house to keep the circulation moving. By placing the seafood tower and the open champagne right outside that door, I was ensuring that the scent of luxury, the scent of the life they were trying to steal, would waft through the tiny cracks in the doorframe. Imagine being trapped in the dark, freezing cold, your body temperature dropping, your fingers going numb. You are terrified. You are starting to panic. And then you hear it. Clink, clink. You hear laughter. You hear the song Unforgettable by Nat King Cole playing over the speakers. You hear the joy of people celebrating. And then you smell it. The buttery garlic scent of roasted shrimp. The crisp, expensive aroma of premium champagne. It would drive them insane. It was a reminder that while they were suffering in the hell, they created the world above my world was continuing without them. It was a reminder that they were on the outside looking in. Literally and metaphorically. I walked over to the balcony railing and looked down. I saw Marcus and two other waiters moving the heavy table to the bottom of the stairs right outside the metal door. They began arranging the ice sculptures and the bottles. I closed my eyes and imagined the scene inside the box. Dante and Chloe would be huddled together on the floor. The initial heat of their affair had long since dissipated. Now it was just survival. Dante, with his selfish nature, had probably already taken his suit jacket back from Chloe. Chloe would be shivering her teeth, chattering her mascara running down her face. Then they would hear the music. Is that the party? Chloe would ask, her voice trembling. They are right outside, Dante would say, banging his fist weakly against the door. Hey, we are in here. Open the damn door. But nobody would hear them. The music was too loud. The laughter was too boisterous. And even if someone did hear a faint thumping, they would just assume it was the bass from the subwoofer or the ice machine cycling. Why aren't they opening it? Chloe would scream, panic rising in her throat. Vanessa, Mama, help. Save your breath, Dante would snap. He was always mean when he was uncomfortable. Using up the oxygen will make us pass out faster. I smell shrimp. Chloe would whisper, the absurdity of it breaking her mind. I smell food. Dante, I'm hungry. I'm so cold, and I'm hungry. Shut up, Chloe, Dante would hiss. Just shut up. And they would sit there, trapped in the dark, smelling the feast they weren't invited to, listening to the wife they betrayed, receiving toasts in their honor. I opened my eyes. A waiter walked by with a tray of truffle arancini. I took one. It was warm, crispy, and delicious. I took a bite, savoring the flavor. Vanessa. I turned. It was my mother again. She had found a glass of wine and was beaming. I just told Mrs. Johnson that you are buying Chloe a house. She was so impressed. She said you are the best sister in the world." I swallowed the arancini. "I really am, aren't I?" I said. "I give and I give." "You do?" Mama nodded. "And it comes back to you. That is how karma works." "Yes, Mama," I said, looking down at the basement stairs where the waiters were popping the first cork. "That is exactly how karma works." The sound of the cork popping echoed up the stairwell. It sounded like a gunshot. I knew they heard it. I knew Dante flinched. I knew Chloe gasped. Let them drink their fear. I was drinking victory. I checked my watch. Kyle was 5 minutes away. The setup was complete. The evidence was secured. The motive was established. And the punishment was currently underway. All that was left was the grand finale. I smoothed my dress. I checked my reflection in the glass of the balcony door. I looked like a queen. A queen who had just sentenced 2 traitors to the dungeon and was now throwing a ball in their honor. "To family," I whispered to myself, raising my glass to the empty air. "And to the cold, hard truth." The heavy oak double doors of my estate swung open, and for a moment the entire party seemed to hold its breath. The contrast was so sharp it almost looked like a scene from a movie where 2 different worlds collide. On one side you had the cream of Atlanta society. Men in bespoke Tom Ford tuxedos, women in Vera Wang and Givenchy holding crystal flutes of champagne that cost more than a car payment. The air smelled of expensive perfume, roasted duck, and money. And then, standing in the doorway framed by the porch lights, was Kyle. My brother-in-law looked like he had just walked off a construction site, which, knowing Kyle, he probably had before going home to babysit. He was wearing his gray work coveralls with the name Kyle stitched in red thread above the pocket. There were dark grease stains on the knees and a smudge of what looked like drywall dust on his cheek. He was holding a massive, battered red toolbox in one hand and a heavy-duty yellow industrial drill in the other. He looked tired. He looked worn out. And he looked completely terrified to be standing there. I watched from the top of the grand staircase as the murmurs started. I saw Mrs. Sterling, the head of the Homeowners Association, wrinkle her nose as if someone had just brought a bag of trash into the foyer. I saw my cousin Marcus nudge his wife and point, probably making a joke about how the help needs to use the side entrance. It made my blood boil, but not for the reason you might think. I wasn't angry at Kyle for looking like a worker. I was angry at them for looking down on him. Kyle was the only man in this entire family who actually knew how to fix things. The men in this room, including the husband I had locked in the freezer, only knew how to break things or spend money on things other people built. Kyle was the real deal, and tonight he was going to be the most important person in the room. I didn't wait for the awkwardness to settle. I moved. I flowed down the staircase, my silk dress trailing behind me like liquid gold. I didn't walk like a hostess apologizing for an intrusion. I walked like a general greeting her most valuable soldier. "Kyle." I called out, my voice cutting through the whispers. "Thank God you are here." The relief on Kyle's face was instant. He had been shifting his weight from foot to foot, looking like he wanted to turn around and run back to his van. But when he saw me coming, he relaxed. "Hey, Vanessa," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the high-ceilinged foyer. "I parked the van right out front. I hope that is okay. I didn't want to waste time going around to the service entrance if it is an emergency." "Well, it is perfect, Kyle," I said, reaching him and doing something that made Mrs. Sterling audibly gasp. I hugged him. I wrapped my arms around his dusty, sweaty work coveralls and pulled him close. I didn't care about the grease getting on my $3,000 dress. In fact, I wanted it there. I wanted the stain. It was a badge of honor. It was proof that I sided with the workers, not the parasites. I pulled back and looked him in the eye. "You are a lifesaver. Seriously, I don't know what I would do without you." Kyle blushed. He was a humble man. He wasn't used to being praised, especially not by me. Chloe had spent years telling him he wasn't good enough, that he was embarrassing, that he needed to get a desk job so he could wear suits like Dante. She had beaten his confidence down so low that a simple thank you from me made him look like he had won the lottery. "It is no problem, V," he said, shifting his toolbox. "You said the meat is at risk. $50,000 worth." "Yes," I lied smoothly. The temperature gauge is reading an error and the door won't budge. I think the electronic lock shorted out when the breaker popped." "Okay," Kyle said, his face shifting into work mode. He was in his element now. The social anxiety vanished, replaced by technical competence. "If it is the electronic strike, I can probably bypass it. If the mechanism is jammed, I might have to drill the core. But either way, we will get it open." "Follow me," I said, taking his arm. I led him through the crowd. I felt the eyes of my guests boring into us. I heard the whispers. "Is that the sister's husband? I thought he was a doctor." "No, honey, he is a repairman." Can you believe she brought him in through the front door during the gala? I ignored them all. Let them talk. Tomorrow they would be talking about something very different. We reached the door to the basement stairs. The music from the party was still loud here, the jazz band playing a lively, upbeat number. But as I opened the door to the lower level, the atmosphere changed. The air coming up from the basement was cooler. The noise of the party became muffled, a distant thumping bass rather than a melody. We started to descend. My heels clicked sharply on the wooden steps. Kyle's heavy work boots made a dull, solid thud behind me. Thud, thud, thud. It sounded like a heartbeat. "So Kyle," I asked, keeping my tone casual as we walked down, "you said Chloe is at the spa. Which spa did she go to?" "I have been looking for a new place to get a facial." Kyle sighed. "I think it is that new place in Buckhead, the one with the gold leaf treatment. She said it was an all-day package. She really needed it, Vanessa. She has been so stressed lately. You know, with her brand and everything, it is hard work trying to be an influencer." I gripped the handrail tighter. Hard work. Taking selfies and spending my money was hard work. Meanwhile, this man was crawling through attics and crawl spaces in the Georgia heat to pay for her facials. "Right," I said. "Stressful. Well, I'm glad she is relaxing. She deserves it." We reached the bottom of the stairs. The hallway was dimmer than the upstairs, lit by recessed mood lighting. And there, sitting right in front of the heavy steel door of the walk-in freezer, was the surreal display I had ordered. The seafood tower was glistening on a bed of crushed ice. The jumbo shrimp were pink and perfect. The open bottles of Dom Perignon were sweating condensation. The smell of the ocean and expensive wine filled the narrow corridor, mixing with the faint, sterile scent of ozone from the electrical room nearby. Kyle stopped. He looked at the seafood tower, then at the freezer door, then at me. He looked confused. Vanessa?" he asked, pointing at the lobster tails. "Why is there a buffet down here? Is this part of the party?" I didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that," I said, waving my hand dismissively. "The catering staff is just staging it here before they bring it upstairs. They ran out of room in the main kitchen prep area. You know how chaotic these events get." Kyle nodded, accepting the lie because he trusted me. "Makes sense," he said. He walked past the champagne and approached the freezer door. The unit was a massive industrial model stainless steel with a heavy-duty handle and a digital keypad that was currently dark. Kyle set his toolbox down on the floor with a heavy clank. He knelt and opened the lid, revealing rows of screwdrivers, wrenches, and wire cutters. He pulled out a multimeter and stood up. "Okay, let's see what we are dealing with," he mumbled to himself. He reached out and touched the keypad. Nothing. He pressed his ear against the heavy steel door, and then it happened. Thump, thump, thump. The sound was faint, muffled by inches of insulation and steel, but it was there. It was rhythmic. It was frantic. It was the sound of two people banging their fists against the metal from the inside. Kyle pulled his head back, his eyes widening. "Vanessa," he said, turning to me. "Did you hear that? Hear what I asked, my face a mask of innocent confusion?" "A noise," Kyle said, looking back at the door. "It sounded like thumping, like something is moving inside." I laughed, a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh, Kyle, you are hearing the compressor fan. It has been making this awful clunking sound all day before it died. That is why I called you. The motor is probably trying to restart and failing. That is the vibration you feel." Kyle looked doubtful. He put his ear against the door again. Thump, thump, muffled scream. "It didn't sound like a fan to me, Vanessa," Kyle said slowly. "It sounded like voices. Is there anyone in there?" My heart rate spiked, but I kept my breathing steady. I had to play this perfectly. If Kyle opened that door right now, without the setup, without the legal protection, it would just be a domestic dispute. I needed it to be more. "Kyle," I said, stepping between him and the door. "Look at me." He turned his blue eyes full of concern. "Who would be in my freezer?" "Kyle," I asked. "The staff is all upstairs. The chefs are in the kitchen. I did a head count myself before I came up to get you. There is nobody in there. It is just $50,000 of beef that is about to rot if we don't get this door open." Kyle hesitated. He was a professional. His gut was telling him something was wrong, but his brain was telling him that his wealthy, successful sister-in-law wouldn't lie to him. "Okay," he said, taking a breath. "It must be the condenser knocking against the housing. Sound travels weirdly through these insulated units." "Exactly," I said. "Now can you open it?" "Yeah," Kyle said, grabbing a heavy-duty drill from his bag. "The electronic lock is dead, so the solenoid is probably stuck in the engaged position. I can't override it with code. I'm going to have to drill through the core of the mechanical cylinder. It will destroy the lock, but it will get the door open." "Do it," I said. "Destroy it. I can buy a new lock. I can't buy new beef." Kyle positioned the drill bit against the keyhole. He was about to pull the trigger. "Wait!" I shouted. Kyle jumped, pulling the drill back. "What?" "What is it?" I reached into the hidden pocket of my dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper and a pen. I had printed it 10 minutes ago in my home office while I was getting the evidence forwarded. "Kyle, I am so sorry, but my insurance company is a nightmare," I said, putting on my best frustrated business owner face. "Because this is a commercial-grade appliance and not a residential fridge, and because you are an outside contractor not employed by my restaurant group, they require a liability waiver for any emergency forced entry." Kyle blinked. "A what?" "A waiver," I explained, unfolding the paper. "It basically just says that I authorized you to drill the lock. That way, if the door is damaged beyond repair, or if the warranty is voided, the insurance company can't sue you for destruction of property, and it confirms that you were the only one who touched the mechanism, so if there is an electrical fire later, they can't blame my house staff." I held the paper out to him. "It protects you, Kyle. I don't want you getting sued by some faceless insurance corporation because you were trying to help me." Kyle looked at the paper. It was dense legal text. He saw words like indemnification sole actor and authorized entry. He didn't read the fine print. He didn't see the clause that stated he was the primary witness to the contents of the unit upon opening. He didn't see the line that absolved me of any knowledge of unauthorized occupants. He just saw his sister-in-law trying to protect him. "Oh, okay," Kyle said, wiping his greasy hand on his coveralls before taking the pen. "That makes sense. You business people have paperwork for everything, don't you?" "You have no idea," I said, watching the tip of the pen hover over the signature line. Kyle signed his name. "Kyle Miller." He dated it. He handed the paper and pen back to me. "There," he said. "Am I legally allowed to save your dinner?" Now I took the paper. I folded it carefully and placed it back in my pocket. It felt like a verdict. "Yes, Kyle," I said, stepping back to give him room. "You are." Kyle raised the drill again. The high-pitched whine of the motor started. He pressed the bit into the metal lock. Zzz-tee! The sound was deafening in the small hallway. Metal ground against metal. Sparks flew, little showers of orange light dancing in the dim air. I watched the door. Inside, I knew they could hear this. The sound of a drill on the lock is terrifying from the outside, but from the inside it must have sounded like a chainsaw coming through the wall. They wouldn't know who was out here. They wouldn't know if it was a rescue or an attack. Dante was probably screaming right now. Chloe was probably huddled in the corner, covering her ears. The vibrations would be shaking the whole door frame. Kyle pushed harder. He was sweating now. This was a high-security lock designed to keep thieves out. But Kyle was determined. He leaned his body weight into the drill. Almost there, he grunted. I watched his back. I felt a pang of genuine pity for him. In about 30 seconds, his world was going to end. The image of his perfect wife, the life he thought he had, the family he sacrificed for it, was all going to be shredded by that drill bit. He was working so hard to break his own heart. "Got it!" Kyle shouted as the drill bit punched through the mechanism. There was a satisfying crunch of metal giving way. He pulled the drill out. Smoke curled from the ruined lock. "Okay," Kyle said, breathing heavily. "The locking mechanism is destroyed. The latch should be free." He put the drill down. He wiped his forehead with his sleeve, leaving a streak of grease across his brow. He looked at me and smiled. A proud, innocent smile. "Ready?" he asked. I nodded. I wasn't smiling. My face was stone. "Open it, Kyle," I whispered. He reached for the heavy iron handle. He gripped it with his calloused, hard-working hand. He pressed the thumb lever. It clicked. The seal broke with a hiss of escaping air. Kyle pulled the heavy door toward him. The first thing that hit us was the fog. The cold white vapor from the freezer rolled out into the hallway like smoke from a stage machine swirling around Kyle's boots. Kyle squinted, trying to see through the mist. "Here goes the beef," he joked. But then the fog cleared, and the light from the hallway spilled into the dark metal box. Kyle didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just stood there, his hand still holding the door handle, frozen in place like a statue. I stepped up beside him. I looked inside. The sight was exactly what I had hoped for. It was pathetic. It was undeniable. It was perfect. But for Kyle, it was the end of the world. And for me, it was just the beginning of the show. Now I need to take you inside that box. I need you to see what I saw later when I reviewed the security footage. You see, when I bought that freezer unit, I had a custom interior camera installed. It is a high-definition night vision wide-angle lens that activates whenever the door is sealed. I told Dante it was for inventory control to make sure the chefs weren't stealing steaks. He believed me. He never once thought to look up at the small black dome in the corner. So while I was upstairs sipping champagne and playing the role of the worried wife, I was also recording a masterpiece. I have watched this footage a dozen times. I watched it with my lawyer. I watched it with the police. And now I'm going to describe it to you frame by frame, because the breakdown of a narcissist is a beautiful thing to witness. The video starts in pitch blackness, but the infrared sensors kick in after 2 seconds, bathing the room in a ghostly green glow. At first there is silence, just the heavy, dead silence of a sealed room. Dante and Chloe are standing by the metal shelving. The transition from passion to panic happens almost instantly. 1 second they are entangled in each other. The next the lights go out, the fan stops, and the heavy thud of the magnetic lock engaging echoes through the small space. Dante pushes Chloe off him. It isn't a gentle motion. He shoves her. "What the hell?" he shouts. His voice sounds flat in the insulated room. "Who turned out the lights?" Chloe is disoriented. She reaches out her hands, grasping at the air. "Dante, I can't see anything. Why is it so dark?" Dante ignores her. He moves toward the door. I can see his silhouette on the camera. He grabs the internal safety release handle. This is a glowing neon knob designed to prevent accidental lock-ins. He pushes it. Nothing happens. He pushes it again harder. He throws his shoulder against the steel. "It is locked," he says, and I can hear the first tremor of fear in his voice. The safety release isn't working. It wasn't working because I had drilled a small screw into the mechanism from the outside 3 months ago. Call it intuition. Call it paranoia. I call it preparation. Chloe starts to whimper. "What do you mean it isn't working? Vanessa probably just tripped the breaker. Just knock on the door. Someone will hear us." Dante starts banging. He pounds his fists against the stainless steel. "Hey, hey, open the door. We are stuck in here." He bangs for a full minute. He stops to listen. Nothing. Just the sound of his own heavy breathing and the settling of the refrigeration coils. The cold hasn't fully set in yet, but the adrenaline is starting to fade, and the reality of the temperature is hitting them. The ambient temperature of the meat and the walls is 10 degrees. It sucks the heat right out of your body. Dante slides down against the door, sitting on a crate of frozen shrimp. He is wearing a tuxedo shirt and trousers, but his jacket is off, lying somewhere on the floor. Chloe is wearing a slip dress that is basically nothing more than a piece of silk. "This is your fault," Dante snarls. He hugs his knees to his chest. "My fault!" Chloe shrieks. Her voice is high and shrill. "How is this my fault? You are the one who said the basement was safe. You are the one who said Vanessa never comes down here during parties. I told you we should have gone to the St. Regis." Dante shoots back. "I told you I had a room reserved. But no, you wanted the thrill. You wanted to do it in her house. You said it made you feel powerful." Well, do you feel powerful now, Chloe? You are sitting on a box of frozen dead animals in the dark. I watched Chloe's face in the green night vision glow. She looks small. She looks like a child who has been caught stealing candy, but instead of remorse, she just feels persecuted. Don't talk to me like that, she says, her teeth beginning to chatter. It is freezing in here, Dante. Give me your shirt. Dante laughs. It is a cruel, ugly sound. Give you my shirt, are you crazy? It is 10 degrees in here. If I take off this shirt, I will get hypothermia in 20 minutes. You are on your own. I watched my sister process this. This is the man who just 5 minutes ago was whispering promises of eternal love and a shared empire. Now he wouldn't even offer her a layer of cotton to stop her shivering. You are such a jerk, Chloe cries. She curls into a ball on the floor, pulling her knees up. Vanessa knows. She has to know. That is why the door is locked. That is why the lights are out. She did this. She doesn't know anything, Dante insists, though he sounds less sure now. She is stupid. She is upstairs smiling at her rich friends. This is just a malfunction. The equipment is old. I told her to replace it last year, but she is too cheap. She would rather spend money on charity galas than infrastructure. He is lying, of course. I replaced that unit 6 months ago. He just wasn't paying attention because he was too busy texting my sister. Time passes on the tape. Maybe 10 minutes. The cold is getting worse. I can see their breath puffing out in white clouds every time they speak. The condensation is settling on their skin. Then they hear it. The music. It starts as a low, thrumming vibration. Then the melody of Unforgettable filters through the seal. And then the smell. I can't see smell on a videotape, obviously, but I can see their reaction. Dante lifts his head. He sniffs the air. Is that garlic? He asks. Chloe uncurls slightly. It smells like the seafood boil, she whispers. It smells so good. Why does it smell so strong? They are right outside, Dante realizes. He scrambles to his feet and starts banging on the door again. Help! We are in here! Vanessa, Marcus! Anyone! He screams until his voice cracks. He kicks the door with his expensive dress shoes. But nobody comes. The music just gets louder, the clinking of glasses, the laughter. It mocks them. Dante slides back down the wall, defeated. He looks at his hands. He realizes something. My phone, he says. I left my phone upstairs. Chloe fumbles in the dark. I left mine in the guest room, she sobs. We are trapped. We are going to die in here, Dante. We are going to freeze to death on your anniversary. Shut up, Dante snaps. We aren't going to die. Someone will come for the meat. Eventually, Chloe screams. It is freezing. Look at my hands. They are turning blue. And then the real drama starts, the payoff I was waiting for. Chloe suddenly grabs her stomach. She doubles over, letting out a sharp gasp of pain. Ow! She moans. Dante, my stomach, it hurts. Dante doesn't move closer to her. He leans away. What is it now? Do you have to go to the bathroom? Because you are going to have to hold it? No. Chloe cries, rocking back and forth. It is the baby, the cramping. It is really bad, Dante. The stress, the cold. I think something is wrong. She is playing the card, the ultimate manipulation. She thinks this will snap him out of his selfishness. She thinks the mention of his heir will make him heroic. But Dante looks down at her with an expression of pure annoyance. Don't start with that, he says. You are fine. You are just dramatic. I am not being dramatic, Chloe yells. She grabs his pant leg with her icy hand. Help me. I am bleeding. I think I am bleeding. I leaned in closer to the monitor when I watched this part. This was the test. This was the moment where Dante could have shown even a shred of humanity. He looks down at her hand, gripping his trousers, his custom-tailored Italian wool trousers. Let go, he shouts, slapping her hand away. Don't touch me. If you are bleeding, don't get it on my suit. This is a $3,000 tuxedo. Chloe, do you know how hard it is to get blood out of wool? Chloe freezes. The physical cold is nothing compared to the chill of those words. She stares up at him in the green darkness. You care more about your pants than your child, she whispers. I care about getting out of here, Dante yells, standing up and pacing the small cage. I care about my reputation. If we get found in here, my life is over. Vanessa will cut me off. I will lose everything. And now you are trying to ruin my clothes. You are a liability, Chloe. You have always been a liability. I watched Chloe's heart break in real time. It wasn't a romantic heartbreak. It was the shattering of a delusion. She realized in that moment that she wasn't the queen of his heart. She was just a side quest. She was just a distraction. And now that the distraction was inconvenient, he was ready to discard her. You promised me, she weeps. You said we would be together. You said you loved me. I said a lot of things, Dante shouts. That is what men do. We say things to get what we want. Grow up, Chloe. He kicks a box of Wagyu beef in frustration. I wish I never met you. Chloe sobs. I wish I was upstairs with Kyle. Kyle would never treat me like this. Kyle would give me his shirt. Kyle would break this door down. Dante laughs again. That loser Kyle is probably at home watching cartoons. He isn't coming to save you. Nobody is coming. And that is when the sound begins. ZZT. It starts as a high-pitched whine vibrating through the steel door. It sounds like a dentist's drill magnified 1,000 times. It is the sound of metal being eaten by metal. Dante freezes. He looks at the door. What is that? He whispers. It is loud. It is aggressive. It sounds violent. To them inside the echo chamber of the freezer, it doesn't sound like a rescue. It sounds like a weapon. Is it a saw? Chloe asks, eyes wide with terror. Are they cutting the door? Dante backs away. He looks terrified. He knows he has enemies. He knows he owes money to loan sharks in the city. He knows he has crossed people. In his panic-stricken mind, this isn't his wife's brother-in-law coming to fix a lock. This is a hitman coming to finish the job. They are coming in, he breathes. The drill hits the core of the lock. The sound changes to a grinding crunch. Sparks would be flying outside, but inside the door just vibrates violently. Dante looks around for a weapon. He grabs a frozen leg of lamb from the shelf. He holds it like a club. Stay back, he shouts at the door, his voice trembling. I am armed. Chloe drags herself into the corner behind a stack of crates. She is sobbing quietly now, praying. Please, God, she whispers. Please let it be the police. Please don't let me die in here with him. The drill stops. Silence returns for a split second. Then the heavy clank of the handle being turned. The latch disengages. Dante lowers the leg of lamb. He tries to compose himself. He tries to smooth his hair. He tries to look like he hasn't just spent the last 20 minutes screaming at his mistress and worrying about his pants. He fails. He looks like exactly what he is, a rat trapped in a cage that is about to be opened. The door cracks. The seal breaks. The white fog rushes in from the warm hallway, blinding them for a second. Dante steps forward, putting on his best arrogant face. About time, he yells at the opening. Do you know who I am? I am going to sue the manufacturer of this. But he stops. The fog clears. And he sees who is standing there. He sees Kyle. And behind Kyle, he sees the faces of 50 of our closest friends, family, and business partners. He sees the iPhones raised recording. He sees me. The look on his face. It wasn't relief. It was the realization that the cold in the freezer was nothing compared to the heat he was about to face. I watched the tape end there. I paused it on that final frame, his eyes wide, his mouth open, his chest bare and shivering. It is a work of art. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to the hallway. Let's go back to the moment the door swung open and the smell of expensive shrimp met the smell of fear. Because what happened next wasn't just justice, it was a public execution of character. The drill was whining. That high-pitched mechanical scream was tearing through the silence of the basement hallway, but it wasn't enough. It was loud, yes, but it was a noise that people ignore. It was the noise of work. It was the noise of labor. And the people upstairs, the people drinking my liquor and eating my crab cakes, they were experts at ignoring labor. They heard a noise and they just assumed someone was fixing something so they could continue their comfort. I could see them through the open door at the top of the stairs. They were still mingling. They were still laughing. A few people had looked over the railing when Kyle first walked in, but now they had lost interest. They had gone back to their gossip and their networking. That simply would not do. I didn't just want the door open. I wanted an audience. I wanted witnesses. I needed the kind of crowd that would make a lie impossible. If Kyle opened that door and it was just the three of us, Dante could spin it. He could say they were checking the inventory. He could say they got locked in by accident. He could say it was innocent. He is a master manipulator. He would charm Kyle. He would make up a story about how he was showing Chloe the quality of the beef and the door slammed shut. He would laugh it off. But you can't laugh off a scandal when 50 people are staring at your half-naked body. You can't charm your way out of it when the entire board of directors is watching you hold your mistress. I needed to bring the party to the basement. I needed a reason for them to descend. I needed a catastrophe that was safer than the truth, but loud enough to wake the dead. I looked at the setup Marcus had created. The seafood tower was magnificent, a mountain of ice and shellfish. But next to it, on a separate round table draped in white linen, was the champagne tower. It was a masterpiece of architecture, 150 crystal flutes stacked in a perfect pyramid. We had planned to pour a magnum of Dom Perignon into the top glass at midnight and watch it cascade down. It was fragile, it was expensive. It was teetering on the edge of physics. It was perfect. Kyle was focused on the lock. His back was to me. He was pressing his entire body weight into the drill sweat soaking through the back of his gray coveralls. The metal was groaning. He was making progress. I had maybe 30 seconds before he punched through the core. I took a breath. I stepped back. I positioned myself exactly between the drilling Kyle and the champagne tower. I waited for a particularly loud screech from the drill. Then I moved. I didn't just bump the table. I threw my hip into it with the grace of a clumsy drunk, but with the force of a linebacker. I let out a scream that started in my diaphragm and tore through my throat. Look out! The sound that followed was the most beautiful symphony of destruction I have ever heard. It wasn't just a crash, it was an explosion of glass. The top glass fell first, hitting the second tier with a sharp ping. Then gravity took over. The entire pyramid collapsed in a waterfall of crystal. Shards flew everywhere. The sound was deafening. It echoed off the concrete walls of the basement hallway and shot up the stairwell like a cannon blast. It was louder than the drill. It was louder than the music. It was the sound of money being destroyed, and if there is one thing rich people respond to, it is the sound of losing money. I threw myself onto the floor, shielding my face with my hands, acting the part of the damsel in distress. Kyle spun around, ripping the drill out of the lock. The noise stopped instantly. Vanessa! He dropped the drill and rushed toward me. I stayed on the floor, surrounded by a million diamonds of broken glass. I made sure to look terrified. I made sure my breathing was erratic. Upstairs, the music cut out. The chatter stopped. The silence that followed the crash was heavy. Then came the stampede. It started with a gasp from the top of the stairs, then footsteps, dozens of them. The sharp click of stilettos, the heavy thud of dress shoes. They were running. They were rushing to the railing. They were pushing each other to get a look. Oh my God, Vanessa, what happened? Is she hurt? I looked up. The staircase was suddenly packed. Faces were peering down at me. Worried faces, curious faces, excited faces. Humans are vultures. They say they hate drama, but they run toward a car crash every single time. And right now, I was the car crash. I scrambled to my feet, pretending to be shaken. I brushed a shard of glass off my skirt. I am okay. I shouted, my voice trembling perfectly. I am okay, everyone. I looked at Kyle, who was checking me for cuts. I am fine, Kyle. The vibration. The vibration from the drill shook the table. It just collapsed. I looked up at the crowd. They were starting to come down the stairs. Slowly at first, then faster. They wanted to see the damage. They wanted to be part of the moment. Stay back, I yelled, waving my arms frantically. Everyone stay back. This, of course, had the exact opposite effect. Tell a crowd to stay back and they lean in. Tell them there is danger and they want to see what it looks like. It is not safe. I screamed, pointing at the electrical panel on the wall. Kyle is dealing with a major short circuit. There could be sparks. The whole system is unstable. Please, for your own safety, do not come down here. I saw my mother, Mama Louise, pushing her way through the crowd. She was holding her chest. "Vanessa, my baby, are you hurt? That crystal. Oh Lord, that was the Waterford crystal." She was coming down the stairs. And because she was the matriarch, everyone followed her. My father, Big Jim, was right behind her. Then came Lydia. Then came the investors. Mr. Henderson, the man with the $5 million check, was right there looking concerned about his investment. I watched them descend. It was like a slow-motion landslide of tuxedos and gowns. They filled the hallway. They crowded into the narrow space. The air instantly got warmer. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with the metallic scent of the drill and the sharp tang of the spilled seafood sauce. They were surrounding us. They were stepping over the broken glass. They were forming a semicircle around the freezer door. I grabbed Kyle's arm. I pretended to be dizzy. "Oh, Kyle, I am so sorry. I distracted you. The sparks. I thought the panel was going to blow." Kyle looked at the crowd, then at me. He looked overwhelmed. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. He had 50 pairs of eyes on him. "It is okay, Vanessa," he said, his voice steady. "I am almost through. Just get back. I need to finish this before the wiring melts." He turned back to the door. The crowd hushed. They were confused. They were looking at the broken glass, then at the man in the dirty coveralls, then at the massive steel door. "What is going on?" It was Mrs. Higgins. She was standing right in the front row, clutching her pearls. "Why is he drilling the door, Vanessa? Is the food stuck?" I looked at her. I looked at Mr. Henderson. I looked at my mother. "It is a malfunction," I said, breathless. "A critical malfunction. The door is jammed. The electrical system failed." "But why the drill?" Mr. Henderson asked, stepping forward. He was a practical man. He liked to understand the mechanics of a failure. "Can't you just call a locksmith?" "There isn't time," I said, injecting a note of panic into my voice. "The temperature is rising. The pressure is building up inside. Kyle says if we don't vent it, the compressor could blow." I was making up complete nonsense. Refrigerators don't blow up because the door is locked. But these people didn't know that. They were bankers and socialites. They knew how to spend money, not how to fix appliances. To them, a man with a drill and a panicked woman meant imminent danger. And danger meant they couldn't look away. "Is Dante down here?" my mother asked, looking around. "You said he was checking the surprise." I paused. I let the question hang in the air. I looked at the door. I looked at the crowd. He must be in the back." I stammered. "I don't know, Mama. I haven't seen him." I saw the confusion on her face. Then I saw the realization dawn on Lydia's face. Lydia knew Dante. Lydia knew he was a flirt. Lydia looked at the locked door, then at me, and I saw a spark of suspicion. Not suspicion of me, but suspicion of the situation. "Is someone inside?" Lydia asked quietly. I didn't answer. I just looked at Kyle. "Hurry, Kyle," I whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Please hurry." The atmosphere in the hallway shifted. It went from curiosity to tension. The guests sensed something was wrong. It wasn't just a broken lock, it was the energy. It was the way I was standing. It was the way Kyle was sweating. They pressed closer. They wanted to see. They wanted to know what was behind that steel barrier. Kyle revved the drill again. The sound was even louder this time because of the enclosed space and the crowd. The guests flinched. Some covered their ears, but nobody left. Nobody walked back up those stairs. They were glued to the spot. I watched Mr. Henderson. He was staring at the door. He was checking his watch. He was probably thinking about the liability. He was probably thinking about whether this short circuit was going to affect the restaurant's insurance premiums. He had no idea he was about to see the reason he should pull his funding immediately. I watched my mother. She was wringing her hands. She was worried about the crystal, worried about the party, worried about appearances. She had no idea she was about to see her favorite daughter exposed as a homewrecker. And I watched the door. I knew what was happening on the other side. They could hear us now. They could hear the voices. They could hear the crowd. Dante would be panicking. He would hear his name. He would hear Mr. Henderson's voice. He would hear my mother. He would know that the cavalry had arrived, but it wasn't a rescue party. It was a jury. He would be trying to fix his clothes. He would be trying to come up with a lie. He would be telling Chloe to hide behind the boxes, but there was nowhere to hide. It was a 10 by 10 box. It was a stage with no wings. Chloe would be terrified. She would hear the heels clicking on the concrete. She would know those heels. She would know the sound of judgment approaching. The drill bit screamed one last time. Metal crunched. Kyle leaned back. He turned off the drill. The silence that followed was heavy. It was thick. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear the hum of the overhead lights. "I got it," Kyle said. He was breathless. He wiped his face with his sleeve. He looked at me. "Do you want me to open it, Vanessa? Or do you want to wait for the maintenance crew to check the wiring first?" I stepped forward. I stepped right into the center of the circle. I looked at the crowd. I looked at my family. I looked at the people who had doubted me, used me, and underestimated me. "Open it, Kyle," I said. My voice was low. It was commanding. It was the voice of a CEO. "But stand back." I warned the crowd. "We don't know what is going on in there." I saw the guests lean in. They held their breath. They raised their phones. They sensed the climax. They didn't know what it was, but they knew it was coming. Kyle reached for the handle. The silver metal gleamed under the hallway lights. His hand closed around it. I locked eyes with Mr. Henderson one last time. "Watch this," I thought. "Watch your investment crumble." Kyle pulled the lever down. Clack. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The door groaned. The seal hissed. The white fog began to bleed out around the edges. And in that split second before the door swung wide, I took a mental picture of the hallway. I memorized the faces of the people who were about to become the audience to my tragedy. I memorized the look of concern on my mother's face that was about to turn into horror. I memorized the innocent determination on Kyle's face that was about to turn into heartbreak. I had gathered them all here. I had staged the lighting. I had provided the soundtrack. And now I was pulling the curtain. "Welcome to the show," I whispered. Kyle pulled the door open. The latch gave way with a heavy metallic clunk that felt like a gavel hitting a judge's bench. Kyle groaned with effort as he hauled the heavy stainless steel door outward. The vacuum seal broke with a sharp hiss like a dying breath, and immediately the air in the hallway changed. A thick, rolling cloud of white vapor spilled out from the freezer, heavy and low, curling around Kyle's work boots and drifting toward the crowd of guests like a spectral fog machine at a bad concert. For a split second, nobody could see anything. The fog was too dense, the contrast between the freezing interior and the warm, humid basement hallway, creating a temporary wall of mist. It was silent. The kind of silence that is heavy, pregnant with disaster. The music from upstairs seemed miles away. The only sound was the hum of the overhead lights and the collective intake of breath from 50 of Atlanta's elite. Then the fog cleared, and the light hit them. It wasn't just the hallway lights. It was the phones. As if on cue, a dozen hands went up. The flashlights from the latest iPhones, the recording lights, the flashes of cameras. It was a firing squad of illumination. Beams of harsh white LED light cut through the remaining mist and illuminated the center of the dark metal box like a stage. And there they were, the stars of the show, Dante and Chloe. The image that burned itself into everyone's retinas that night was something that no amount of PR spin could ever fix. It was primal, it was pathetic, and it was absolutely damning. Dante was standing in the center of the small room, shivering so violently that his teeth were audible over the low hum of the crowd. He was shirtless. His custom Italian dress shirt was gone, probably discarded in the heat of passion before the cold set in, or maybe used to wipe something up. He was wearing his tuxedo trousers, but they were unbuttoned at the waist, the belt buckle hanging loose and clinking against his thigh. His chest, usually puffed out with arrogance, was covered in goosebumps, his skin a pale, mottled gray from the cold. He had his tuxedo jacket in his hands, but he wasn't wearing it. He was draped over Chloe, trying to shield her, or maybe trying to hide her. But it was too late for hiding. Chloe was a wreck. My beautiful high-maintenance influencer sister looked like a tragic survivor of a shipwreck. She was sitting on a stack of cardboard boxes labeled Premium Angus Beef. Her legs were bare blue with cold tucked up under her chin. Her expensive silk dress was hiked up around her hips, twisted and wrinkled. Her hair, which she had spent 3 hours getting done this morning, was a matted mess of frizz and condensation. Her mascara had run down her face in thick black streaks, making her look like a terrifying clown. They were entangled. Not in a romantic way, but in a desperate animalistic way, clinging to each other for warmth, huddled together on top of raw meat. When the light hit them, they both flinched. They held up their hands to shield their eyes, looking like raccoons caught in the headlights of a semi-truck. The smell wafted out then. It wasn't just the clean smell of cold air. It was the smell of sweat, the smell of fear, the smell of sex. It mixed with the aroma of the seafood tower outside in a nauseating cocktail that made Mrs. Higgins cover her nose with a handkerchief. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The tableau was frozen. The betrayed husband, the treacherous sister, the stunned crowd. Then Kyle moved. Or rather, Kyle stopped moving. My brother-in-law had been holding the door handle, bracing it open. He was staring into the box. He blinked. Once. Twice. He tilted his head slightly as if his brain was refusing to process the visual information his eyes were sending. He saw his wife, the woman he worshipped, the woman he worked 60-hour weeks for, the woman he thought was at a luxury spa getting a gold leaf facial. He saw her half naked. He saw her legs wrapped around another man. He saw the way she was looking at Dante, not with fear of the situation, but with a familiarity that screamed of long nights and shared secrets. And he saw the man. Dante, the man Kyle looked up to, the man Kyle tried to emulate, the brother-in-law who always made Kyle feel small, who made jokes about Kyle's work boots and his truck. The realization didn't hit Kyle like a wave, it hit him like a bullet. His hand went slack. The heavy-duty industrial screwdriver he was holding in his left hand slipped from his fingers. Clang! The sound of the steel tool hitting the concrete floor was sharp and violent. It broke the spell. Kyle took a step back. His face, usually flushed with the exertion of work, drained of all color. He went pale, then gray. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. He looked like a man who had just watched his house burn down with everything he owned inside. He looked at Chloe. He looked at Dante. And then he looked at me. His eyes were wide, pleading. Wide. He wanted me to tell him it was a joke. He wanted me to tell him it was a hallucination. But I just stood there, my face a mask of cool, calm judgment. I didn't save him. I couldn't save him. He had to see it. The crowd behind us erupted. It wasn't a cheer. It was a collective gasp that turned into a murmur of shock and delight. Oh my God, look at them. Is that Dante? Why is he naked? That is the sister. That is Chloe. They were in the freezer together. Get a picture. Send it to the group chat. The phones went higher. The flashes strobed faster. It was a paparazzi frenzy. My mother, Mama Louise, let out a wail that sounded like a dying cat. She pushed her way to the front, grabbing the doorframe for support. Chloe, what are you doing? What is this? Inside the box, the reality of the exposure finally pierced through the cold. Dante scrambled backward, tripping over a box of frozen scallops. He tried to pull the tuxedo jacket over his chest, trying to cover his indignity. He looked at the crowd, he looked at the phones, he saw his business partners, he saw the investors, he saw the destruction of his reputation happening in real time. He tried to stand up, he tried to summon the ghost of his usual arrogance. He straightened his spine even though he was shivering so hard his knees were knocking together. He held up a hand, palm out, as if he could command the sun to stop shining. Wait, he croaked. His voice was hoarse, weak, pathetic. Wait, everyone listen. He stepped toward the door, but the cold had stiffened his muscles. He stumbled, catching himself on the metal shelf. He looked ridiculous. A half-naked man in a freezer trying to command respect from a room full of people in tuxedos. It isn't what it looks like. He shouted, his voice cracking. Put the phones away. Stop recording. He looked at Kyle. He tried to smile, a sick, twisted, desperate smile. Kyle, buddy, he said, his teeth chattering. Kyle, listen to me. We came down here to check the inventory. The crowd went silent again, waiting for the lie. It was such a bad lie. It was insulting. Inventory. Kyle whispered. His voice was flat. Dead. Yes. Dante nodded frantically. The thermostat. We thought the thermostat was broken. I asked Chloe to help me. We came in to check the temperature gauges in the back, and the door just slammed shut. The handle broke. We have been trapped in here for an hour. We were freezing. We had to huddle for body heat. It was survival, Kyle, just survival. He pointed at his bare chest. I gave her my shirt because she was cold. I was being a gentleman. I was protecting your wife, Kyle. You should be thanking me. The audacity of the statement hung in the air like a foul odor. He was trying to frame his betrayal as heroism. He was trying to gaslight the man he had just cuckolded in front of 50 witnesses. Chloe chimed in from the floor, pulling the jacket tighter around her shoulders. Yes, she sobbed, tears streaming down her messy face. Yes, Kyle, it was an accident. We were just checking the meat. I swear on our children. That was the mistake. She swore on the children. I saw Kyle's face change. The shock was replaced by a slow burning rage. His hands curled into fists at his sides. The veins in his neck popped out. His face turned a deep, dangerous shade of red. He looked at the screwdriver on the floor. He looked at Dante's throat. For a second, I thought he was going to kill him. I thought I had pushed it too far. But Kyle was a good man. Too good for them. He didn't pick up the weapon. He just stood there, breathing heavy, staring at the lie they were trying to feed him. I decided it was time for me to step in. The audience was captivated, but the villain was trying to rewrite the script. I couldn't allow that. I had to deliver the final blow. I had to make sure nobody in that room, not even the most gullible fool, could believe Dante's story. I stepped forward. The heels of my Christian Louboutins clicked sharply on the concrete, cutting through the murmurs. I walked past Kyle. I walked right up to the threshold of the freezer. I didn't step inside. I wouldn't dirty my shoes. I stood right at the edge, the boundary between the warmth of my success and the cold of their failure. I looked Dante up and down. I looked at his bare chest. I looked at his unbuttoned pants. I looked at the lipstick smear on his neck, a shade of red that matched Chloe's ruined mouth perfectly. I looked at the scratch marks on his back, visible as he turned slightly. I let a small, cruel smile play on my lips. I raised an eyebrow, checking the temperature. I repeated, my voice calm, projecting clearly to the back of the hallway where the investors were standing. Dante met my eyes. He looked desperate. Vanessa, baby, please, tell them. Tell them I am dedicated to this business. Tell them I check the inventory personally. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You are dedicated, all right, I said. I leaned in closer, so close that I could see the fear in his pupils. I gestured to the lipstick on his collarbone. I gestured to the disheveled state of my sister's dress. You know Dante, I said, pitching my voice so that the camera phones would pick up every syllable. I have been in the restaurant business for 15 years. I know every health code regulation in the state of Georgia. I know how to store meat. I know how to check a thermostat. I paused for effect. The crowd leaned in, and in all my years, I continued, my voice dropping to a lethal whisper that carried like a scream. I have never ever heard of a health inspector who needed to take his shirt off to read a thermometer. The crowd erupted in laughter. It was nervous, shocked laughter, but it was laughter. Dante flinched as if I had slapped him. And Chloe, I said, shifting my gaze to my sister. Since when do you check inventory? You can't even check the price tag on a pair of shoes before you charge them to my card. Chloe put her head down, sobbing into her knees. I turned back to Dante. I looked him dead in the eye. You said you were checking the temperature, I said. I looked at his mouth. I looked at Chloe's mouth. Tell me, Dante. I asked, delivering the line I had rehearsed in my head 1,000 times since I saw them on the camera. Were you checking the temperature with your tongue? The reaction was instantaneous. Oh! The crowd went wild. It was the payoff. It was the moment the tension broke. Mrs. Sterling gasped so hard she choked on her drink. My cousin Marcus let out a loud, "Whoom!" The phones flashed frantically. Dante's face crumbled. The excuse evaporated. He knew he was done. He knew there was no coming back from that. The laughter of the crowd was a verdict. He wasn't a victim of a lockout. He was a joke. He was a clown caught with his pants down. He slumped against the metal shelving, the fight draining out of him. He looked small, he looked cold, he looked exactly like what he was, a man who had gambled everything on his ego and lost. I turned my back on them. I faced the crowd. I faced Kyle. Kyle was still staring at them. But after my comment, the confusion was gone. He knew. He knew everything. I put a hand on Kyle's shoulder. "I am sorry, Kyle." I said loud enough for the witnesses. "I am so sorry you had to find out like this. I tried to warn you. I tried to tell you the wiring was faulty. But some things just need to be exposed to the light." Kyle looked at me. There were tears in his eyes now, angry tears. He nodded slowly. He understood. He understood that I had used him, but he also understood that I had given him the truth. And right now, the truth was the only thing he had left. He turned back to the open door. He didn't scream. He didn't shout. He just looked at his wife with a look of pure disgust. "Don't come home," he said. His voice was quiet, but in the silence of the aftermath, it was deafening. Chloe looked up, wailing. "Kyle." "No, please don't come home to my house," Kyle repeated. "Don't come near my kids. I am done, Chloe. I am done paying for you. I am done fixing your messes." He turned around. He picked up his heavy red toolbox. He picked up his drill. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at me. He just walked toward the stairs. The crowd parted for him. They moved aside with respect. The man in the dirty coveralls walked through the sea of tuxedos like a king. He had his dignity. That was more than anyone could say for the two people shivering in the box. I watched him go. Then I turned back to the freezer. Dante was trying to button his shirt with numb fingers. He looked at me with hatred. "You planned this," he hissed. "You crazy witch. You set us up." I smiled. I beckoned to the security guards who had finally made their way down the stairs. "Escort them out," I said calmly. "And make sure you check their pockets. I don't want them stealing any steaks on the way out." The crowd laughed again. Dante lunged at me, but he was weak from the cold, and the guards grabbed him instantly. They dragged him out of the freezer, shirtless, shivering, humiliated. Chloe scrambled after him, trying to hide her face with her hair slipping on the wet concrete. It was a parade of shame. They were marched up the stairs, past the champagne tower, past the seafood, past the judging eyes of everyone they wanted to impress. I stood in the hallway alone for a moment. I looked at the empty freezer. I looked at the broken lock. I looked at the shattered glass of the champagne tower on the floor. It was a mess, a beautiful, glorious mess. I signaled to the waiter, "Pour me a glass," I said, pointing to the surviving bottles of Dom Perignon. He poured it. I took a sip. It tasted like victory. It tasted like freedom. I walked up the stairs following the procession. The party was over, but my life was just beginning. And as I stepped into the foyer to watch my husband being thrown out onto the front lawn, I knew one thing for sure. Revenge is a dish best served cold, literally. The laughter of the crowd had died down, replaced by a buzzing silence that felt electric. Everyone was watching Kyle. In the movies, this is the part where the betrayed husband throws a punch. It is the part where he screams, throws a vase, or falls to his knees begging for an explanation. The audience was waiting for it. They wanted the explosion. They wanted the violence because violence is easy to understand. But Kyle didn't give them violence. He gave them something much worse. He gave them indifference. He stood there in his dirty gray coveralls holding his red toolbox like a briefcase. He looked at Dante, who was being dragged away by security, and didn't even blink. Then he turned his gaze to Chloe. My sister was shivering, clutching her arms, looking up at him with mascara running down her face, like war paint gone wrong. She took a step toward him. She reached out a hand. "Kyle," she whimpered. "Baby, please, let me explain. It was a mistake. We were just talking." She actually thought she could still play him. She thought she could bat her eyelashes, cry a few tears, and the sweet, simple electrician she married would melt. She thought he was stupid. She thought his kindness was a weakness. Kyle didn't back away. He didn't flinch. He walked right up to her. He invaded her personal space, looming over her, but not in a threatening way. He looked at her with the clinical detachment of a doctor looking at a tumor he was about to cut out. He reached into the front pocket of his coveralls. Chloe flinched, thinking he was reaching for a weapon. The crowd gasped, but he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a pair of sunglasses. He put them on, covering his red-rimmed eyes. Then he spoke. His voice was low. It was calm. It was that flat, suburban, matter-of-fact tone that sends a chill down your spine because it is so completely devoid of emotion. "You don't need to explain anything, Chloe," he said. Chloe sobbed. "Yes, I do. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Kyle interrupted. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The silence in the hallway was so deep that a whisper would have sounded like a shout. "I understand that you have been sleeping with him for 3 months," Kyle said. "I understand that you meet him at the Motel 6 on the highway on Tuesdays because you think I am at the supply house. I understand that you told him our son is annoying. I understand that you are planning to leave me as soon as Vanessa signs her deal so you can upgrade to a better lifestyle." Chloe stopped crying. Her mouth fell open. The color drained from her face so fast she looked like a corpse. How she whispered. "How do you know?" Kyle adjusted his grip on the toolbox. "Because I am not stupid, Chloe. I fix things for a living. I notice when circuits are broken. I notice when connections are loose. And I notice when my wife changes her password and stops wearing her ring." He leaned in closer. "I didn't come here tonight to save the meat," he said. "And I didn't come here to save you." Chloe looked at me, then back at Kyle. Confusion and terror were warring in her eyes. "The divorce papers are on the kitchen island," Kyle said. "I signed them this morning. I packed your bags. They are on the front porch. I changed the locks on the house an hour ago." Chloe shook her head. "No. No, Kyle. You can't do that. The kids." Kyle smiled. It was a cold, hard smile. "The kids are with my mother," he said. "And that is where they are going to stay. I have the text messages, Chloe. I have the photos. I have the GPS logs from your car. And now, thanks to Vanessa, I have 50 witnesses who just saw you half naked in a freezer with another man." He looked around the hallway, acknowledging the crowd for the first time. "I have full custody," he said softly. "My lawyer says you won't even get supervised visitation until you pass a psych evaluation. You are done, Chloe. You are homeless. You are jobless. And you are childless." He turned to walk away but stopped one last time. "Oh, and Chloe," he added, "I canceled your credit cards. Good luck with the Uber." He walked past her. He walked past me. He walked up the stairs without looking back. I watched him go, and I felt a surge of pride that almost brought me to tears. You see, this is the part of the story that nobody saw coming. This is the twist that makes the victory so sweet. Everyone in that room thought I was the puppet master pulling the strings of a poor, oblivious husband. They thought I had tricked Kyle into coming here. They thought I had used him as a pawn in my game of revenge. They were wrong. Kyle wasn't a pawn. He was my partner. 3 days ago, I was sitting in my office reviewing the security footage from the restaurant. I saw Dante and Chloe whispering in the corner. I had my suspicions, but I needed confirmation. That was when my phone rang. It was Kyle. "Vanessa," he had said, his voice shaking. "We need to talk. I think they are doing it. I think they are together." He had found the receipts. He had found the second phone Chloe thought she had hidden so well. He was devastated. He was ready to storm over to my house with a baseball bat. I talked him down. I told him to breathe. I told him that violence would only land him in jail and lose him his children. I told him that if he wanted to win, if he really wanted to protect his kids and destroy the people who hurt us, he had to be smart. He had to be cold. We met at a coffee shop in the next town over. We sat in the back booth. Me, the CEO in the power suit. Him, the electrician in the work boots. We compared notes. We connected the dots. We realized the scale of the betrayal was massive, and we made a plan. I told him about the party. I told him about the freezer. I told him that I was going to trap them. "I need you to be the one to open the door," I had told him. "I need you to be the face of the heartbreak. I need the world to see what they did to a good man." Kyle had hesitated. He didn't want the drama. He didn't want the public scrutiny. But then I told him about the custody battle. I told him that Chloe was planning to take the kids and raise them with Dante. I told him that Dante hated children. That was the turning point. Kyle's eyes had gone hard. "Tell me what to do," he had said. So we choreographed it. The call, the delay, the drill, the waiver. Even the toolbox was a prop we agreed on to emphasize his working-class honesty against their elitist deception. When I called him tonight, he wasn't at home watching cartoons. He was sitting in his van around the corner waiting for my signal. He was waiting for the text that said, "The trap is set." When he walked down those stairs, he wasn't confused. He was acting, and he gave the performance of a lifetime. He played the role of the stunned husband perfectly because he needed that leverage. He needed the court of public opinion to be so firmly on his side that no judge in Georgia would dare give Chloe a dime. I looked at Chloe now. She was standing alone in the hallway. The crowd had pulled back from her as if she had a contagious disease. She was looking at the empty staircase where her husband had just disappeared. She realized it then. She realized that the safe, boring, reliable option she had despised was actually the only thing holding her life together. She realized that while she was chasing the fantasy of being a rich man's wife, she had lost the reality of being a good man's queen. I walked up to her. I didn't offer her a hand. I didn't offer her a tissue. She looked at me. Her eyes were wild. "You knew," she whispered. "You and him. You planned this." I took a sip of my champagne. "We didn't just plan it, Chloe," I said. "We executed it." "You are my sister," she wailed. "How could you do this to me?" I laughed. It was a genuine laugh this time. "Sister," I said, shaking my head, "you stop being my sister the minute you touch my husband. You stop being my sister the minute you plan to steal my company. You are not family anymore. You are just a defendant." I signaled to Marcus. "Get her out of here," I said. "She is trespassing." Marcus nodded. He signaled to 2 large security guards. They stepped forward. Chloe started screaming, "No, no, I live here. This is my family." "Not anymore," I said. The guards grabbed her arms. They weren't gentle. They dragged her toward the stairs, her heels scraping against the concrete, her dress riding up her dignity, left somewhere back in the freezer. I watched her go. I listened to her screams fade as they dragged her out the front door and threw her onto the lawn next to Dante. I turned back to the crowd. They were silent, watching me with a mixture of fear and awe. They knew what I was capable of now. They knew that Vanessa Jones wasn't just a businesswoman. I was a warlord. I raised my glass. "Sorry about the interruption, everyone," I said, my voice projecting clearly, "and sorry about the seafood. But I think we can all agree that the air is much cleaner now that the trash has been taken out." A few people chuckled nervously, then a few more. Then someone started clapping. I think it was Mr. Henderson. Then my mother started clapping because she always bets on the winner. Soon the whole hallway was applauding. They weren't clapping for the anniversary. They were clapping for the show. But inside I was clapping for Kyle, the man who walked away, the man who refused to fight for a woman who didn't deserve him, the man who secured his children's future with a pair of wire cutters and a broken heart. We had won. The alliance of the betrayed had struck back with nuclear force. I looked at my phone. I had a text from Kyle. "Done. Kids are safe." "Thank you, V." I typed back. "Thank you, Kyle. Drinks on me when this is over." I put the phone away. The night was young. I had a party to finish. I had a business to run. And I had a divorce to file. But first I needed to check on that beef. It would be a shame to let $50,000 go to waste just because it had been touched by snakes. Kyle had left the building. My sister had been dragged out like the trash she was. But Dante was still there. And Dante, true to his nature, was not going to go down without a fight. He was a cornered rat, and rats always try to bite before they die. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, shivering in his unbuttoned trousers, his chest heaving with exertion and cold. He watched the security guards dragging Chloe away, and I saw the gears turning in his head. He realized that the emotional appeal hadn't worked. He realized that the loving husband act had failed. So he decided to switch to the only card he had left, the business card. He looked past me straight at Mr. Henderson and the group of investors standing at the back of the hallway. He straightened his spine, trying to summon some semblance of dignity, despite the fact that his lips were blue. Mr. Henderson Dante shouted, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. "Wait. Don't listen to her. This is a hostile takeover. She is trying to push me out of the company." He took a step toward the stairs, his eyes wild. "I am the CFO of this restaurant group," he yelled, pointing a shaking finger at himself. "I control the accounts. I know where the money is. Vanessa is unstable. She locked me in a freezer. That is assault. You have to listen to me. I can explain the numbers." He was trying to run past me. He was trying to get to the men with the money, thinking he could charm them, thinking he could spin some story about a crazy wife and a misunderstood genius. He lunged forward, trying to push past the security guard I had stationed at the base of the steps. "Move!" Dante screamed. "Get out of my way!" I didn't move a muscle. I didn't flinch. I just raised my right hand palm open in a sharp, decisive motion. "Stop him!" I commanded. The two security guards, massive men named Tiny and Big Mike, who had been on my payroll for 5 years, stepped in front of Dante like a human wall. Tiny grabbed Dante by the shoulder and shoved him back. Dante stumbled, his bare feet slipping on the wet floor, and he fell hard onto his backside right in front of the open freezer door. He looked up at me, spitting with rage. "You can't do this!" he screamed. "This is kidnapping. This is unlawful imprisonment. I will sue you. I will take half of everything. You think you can shame me because I slept with your sister. That is a civil matter, Vanessa. That is just a divorce. You can't stop me from leaving." I took a slow, deliberate sip of my champagne. I let the bubbles fizz on my tongue. I looked down at him with the kind of pity you usually reserve for roadkill. "You really don't get it, do you, Dante?" I asked, my voice calm, cool, and collected. I walked closer to him, towering over his seated form. The crowd leaned in. They wanted to hear the finale. "You think I went to all this trouble just because you dipped your pen in the wrong ink?" I asked, shaking my head. "You think I orchestrated a party, a lockdown, and a public humiliation just because my feelings were hurt?" I laughed. It was a cold sound. "Dante, I am a businesswoman. I don't invest this much capital in a project unless the return on investment is guaranteed. And I certainly don't waste my time on petty revenge for infidelity. Men cheat. It is boring. It is cliché. If I just wanted to divorce you, I would have served you papers at breakfast and changed the locks while you were at the gym." I crouched down, bringing my face level with his. "I didn't lock you in that box because I was jealous, Dante. I locked you in there to preserve the crime scene." Dante blinked. The confusion on his face was genuine. "Crime scene. What are you talking about?" I stood up and turned to the crowd. I gestured to the open freezer behind Dante. I gestured to the rows and rows of cardboard boxes stacked on the shelves. The boxes they had been using as a love seat. The boxes labeled Premium Wagyu Beef, Mr. Henderson, I said, addressing my lead investor. "Do you recall last month when Dante told the board that our food costs had spiked by 30%? Do you remember him saying that the price of imported Japanese beef had skyrocketed due to supply chain issues?" Mr. Henderson nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing. "I remember," he said. He showed us the invoices. "We authorized an emergency budget increase of $200,000 to cover it." "Exactly," I said. $200,000. I walked over to the freezer. I reached inside and grabbed one of the boxes. It was heavy. I pulled it out and threw it onto the floor in the middle of the hallway. "Open it," I told Kyle. But Kyle was gone. So I looked at Marcus. Marcus opened the box. Marcus stepped forward with a steak knife from the catering table. He sliced the tape. He pulled the flaps open. Inside, wrapped in plastic, were cuts of meat. But they weren't the marbled ruby red A5 Wagyu steaks that cost $50 an ounce. They were gray, tough, stringy slabs of meat. "That, ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "is USDA Select, the kind of meat you buy at a discount bulk store. It costs about $4 a pound." The crowd gasped. "Dante." I continued turning back to my husband, has been ordering the cheapest meat available for the last 6 months, but he has been invoicing the company for premium Japanese imports. He created a shell company, a fake vendor called DM Imports. Sounds official, right? But DM stands for Dante and Matthews. Matthews being my sister's last name. I saw the color drain from Dante's face. He started to shake his head. No, that is a lie. That is a mistake. It is not a mistake, I said. It is embezzlement. It is fraud. And it is grand larceny. I pulled a folded stack of papers from my clutch. I have the bank records right here, I said, waving them in the air. Every time the restaurant paid DM Imports for a shipment of this garbage meat, the money didn't go to Japan. It went to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. An account registered to Dante Jones and Chloe Matthews. I looked at the crowd. They weren't laughing anymore. They were shocked. This wasn't just a scandal. This was a felony. They were stealing from the company, I said, my voice rising with righteous anger. They were serving my customers subpar food and pocketing the difference. They were using that money to fund their affair, to buy Chloe's designer bags, and to save up for that house in Tuxedo Park. I pointed at the box on the floor. And the irony, I said, looking at Dante. The irony is that you were trapped in there on top of the very evidence that is going to send you to prison. You were literally sitting on your own crimes. Dante tried to stand up again. He looked frantic. He looked at the door at the top of the stairs. He was calculating the distance. He was thinking about running. Don't even think about it, I said. Just then, the sound of sirens cut through the night air outside. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows at the top of the stairwell, reflecting off the crystal chandelier in the foyer. You hear that? I asked Dante. That isn't the Uber you called. I had called the Atlanta Police Department's Economic Crimes Unit an hour ago. I told them I had a suspect detained in my basement who was a flight risk. I told them I had physical evidence of a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme secured on the premises. The front doors upstairs burst open. Heavy footsteps thundered across the hardwood floors. Police coming down, 4 officers in uniform, followed by 2 detectives in suits, descended the stairs. They looked serious. They looked ready for business. Dante scrambled back against the freezer door. No, I didn't do it. She is framing me. She planted the meat. The lead detective, a tall woman with a no-nonsense expression, walked straight up to me. Mrs. Jones, she asked. That is me, I said. And that is him. I pointed at Dante. Dante Jones, the detective said, pulling a pair of handcuffs from her belt. You are under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, and commercial forgery. She grabbed Dante's wrist. He tried to pull away, but she spun him around and slammed him against the metal shelves of the seafood tower. The ice rattled. The shrimp flew. You have the right to remain silent, she recited, clicking the cuffs onto his wrists. I didn't do it! Dante screamed as they hauled him up. It is my word against hers. You have no proof. Those are just invoices. Anyone could have made them. I waited until they had dragged him halfway to the stairs. Wait, I called out. The detective stopped. Dante looked back, hope flickering in his eyes. Maybe he thought I was going to show mercy. Maybe he thought I was going to drop the charges. He says you have no proof, I said to the detective. He says it is his word against mine. I walked over to the freezer again. I pointed up to the corner of the ceiling just inside the doorframe. There, hidden in the shadows, was a small black dome. Officer, I said, that is a 4K resolution security camera with audio recording capabilities. It is motion activated. It has been recording for the last hour. Dante went limp in the officer's grip. His eyes bulged. You see, I continued enjoying every syllable. While they were trapped in there waiting for rescue, Dante and Chloe had a very interesting conversation. I was listening to the live feed on my phone upstairs. I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen. I turned the volume up to maximum. Dante's voice, tinny but clear, floated out of the speaker. We just need to hold on until Tuesday, Chloe. Once the franchise deal goes through, I will transfer the rest of the shell company funds. Vanessa is too stupid to check the inventory logs. She doesn't know about the fake beef. She thinks we are serving the real thing. We are going to be rich, baby. We are going to take her for everything she has. The recording played on. I cooked the books perfectly. The auditor is an idiot. Nobody will ever know that we swapped the meat. We are geniuses. I paused the recording. I looked at Dante. Geniuses. I repeated. The silence in the hallway was absolute. Even the police officers looked impressed. It was a confession. A full, uncoerced, detailed confession recorded in high definition. That sounds like proof to me, the detective said, a small smile playing on her lips. She shoved Dante forward. Let's go, genius. Dante didn't scream this time. He didn't fight. He just hung his head. He looked broken. He looked finished. He walked up the stairs in his bare feet, the handcuffs glinting in the light, passing the guests, who were now looking at him not with amusement, but with disgust. He was a thief. He was a liar. And he was caught. I watched him disappear through the door at the top of the stairs. I watched the flashing lights outside fade as the squad car drove away. The show was over. The villain was gone. The hero me was left standing in the wreckage of a champagne tower and a marriage. I turned to the crowd. Mr. Henderson was the first to speak. He walked down the rest of the stairs and stood in front of me. He looked at the cheap beef on the floor. He looked at the empty freezer. Then he looked at me. Vanessa, he said, that was efficient. I protect my assets. Mr. Henderson, I said, and I protect my investors. You won't lose a dime. The police will recover the funds from the offshore account. And as for the meat, I kicked the box of cheap steak. V's Kitchen never serves low-quality food. This was an anomaly, and the anomaly has been removed. Mr. Henderson nodded. He looked terrified of me. That was good. Fear breeds respect. We are still on for the signing on Monday, I asked. Mr. Henderson swallowed hard. Absolutely, he said. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had smiled all night. Good, I said. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a party to host, and I believe there is still plenty of real champagne upstairs. I walked past him. I walked up the stairs, my head held high. My dress was perfect. My makeup was perfect. My life was perfect. I had lost a husband. I had lost a sister. But I had saved my empire, and in the world I lived in, that was the only victory that mattered. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard the jazz band start up again. The party was resuming, the world was moving on, and I was moving with it, lighter, richer, and infinitely more dangerous than I was when the night began. And if anyone ever asks you what happened to Dante Jones, just tell them he got put on ice. Permanently. The flashing lights of the police cruisers had faded, but the after image of Dante and Chloe being shoved into the back seats lingered in the minds of everyone present. It was a pathetic sight. Dante, still shirtless, his expensive trousers stained with frost and dirt, sat hunched over his face, buried in his hands. Chloe was sobbing uncontrollably, her makeup a smeared mask of tragedy, pressing her face against the cold glass as the car pulled away. They looked nothing like the power couple they had pretended to be. They looked like exactly what they were, two desperate, greedy people who had gambled everything and lost. My mother, Mama Louise, was still standing on the front porch. She was clutching her chest, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in her life, she had no words. She had watched her golden child, her precious Chloe, be dragged away in handcuffs, and she knew there was absolutely nothing she could do about it. Vanessa, she wailed, reaching out to me as I walked back toward the house. Vanessa, please, you have to stop this. Call the lawyer. Call someone. She is your sister. She is pregnant. I stopped on the top step. I turned slowly to face her. The guests who were still lingering on the lawn watched us silent and rapt. She is not my sister, Mama, I said, my voice as cold as the winter air. She is a criminal. And as for being pregnant, the police have doctors in jail. I am sure they will take excellent care of her. But the scandal. Mama cried, wringing her hands. What will people say? Our reputation. I laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. Your reputation, Mama, I corrected her. My reputation is just fine. In fact, I think it just went up. Everyone in this town now knows that nobody steals from Vanessa Jones and gets away with it. I turned my back on her. I walked through the heavy oak doors and signaled to the security guards. Close the gates, I ordered. The party is over. I walked through the foyer past the shattered remains of the champagne tower that the staff was already sweeping up. I walked into the main ballroom, which was now empty except for the scattered glasses and the lingering smell of expensive perfume. I headed straight for the bar. Sitting there on a velvet stool was Kyle. He had taken off his work coveralls, revealing a simple white t-shirt and jeans underneath. He looked tired. He looked drained. But he also looked cleaner, lighter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He was staring into a glass of amber liquid, swirling it gently. I walked behind the bar. I grabbed the bottle of Louis XIII cognac, the $3,000 bottle Dante had been saving for a special occasion. I popped the cork. I poured a generous amount into a crystal snifter. I slid it across the marble counter to Kyle. He looked up. His eyes were red, but they were clear. "Thanks," he said, his voice raspy. I poured a glass for myself. I clinked my glass against his. "To freedom," I said. Kyle managed a weak smile. "To freedom." We drank in silence for a moment. The burn of the alcohol was grounding. It felt real. "You know," Kyle said, setting his glass down, "I almost felt bad for them. Almost. When the door opened and I saw them shivering like that, part of me wanted to give her my jacket." "That is because you are a good man, Kyle," I said. "You have a heart. They don't." "Yeah, well," Kyle sighed, "my heart is a little bruised right now. It will heal," I promised him. "And you have the kids. You have full custody. That is what matters." Kyle nodded. He pulled out his phone and looked at the lock screen, a picture of his son and daughter laughing at the park. "Yeah, the kids. I am going to take them to Disney World next week. Just the three of us. No drama, no Instagram, just fun." I smiled. "Put it on the company card," I said. "Consider it a bonus." Kyle chuckled. He looked at me. Really looked at me. "You are scary, Vanessa," he said, shaking his head. "You know that, right? The way you handled that crowd, the way you set that trap, it was terrifying." I took another sip of cognac. "I do what I have to do, Kyle," I said. "In this world, if you are not the hunter, you are the prey. I refused to be the prey." Kyle swirled his drink again. "You are the best electrician I have ever known, Kyle," I said softly. "You fixed the problem. You cut the power to the parasites." Kyle looked at his hands, his rough, calloused, honest hands. "And you, Vanessa," he said, raising his glass to me, "you are the most ruthless boss I have ever met. But you are fair." He took a drink. "Hopes for a fruitful partnership?" he asked. I smiled. I thought about the future. I thought about the restaurant empire I was going to build. I thought about Kyle running the facilities management, keeping everything running smooth and honest. I thought about his kids, my niece and nephew growing up with a father who loved them, and an aunt who would give them the world. Hopes for a fruitful partnership, I agreed. We sat there in the quiet of the empty mansion, two survivors of a shipwreck, drinking the captain's best liquor. The house was silent. The drama was over. The cold storage downstairs was empty, but the lesson it taught would last forever. And as I looked at Kyle, I realized that while I had lost a husband and a sister, I had gained something much more valuable. I had gained a true ally. And in a city like Atlanta, an ally who knows how to use a drill and keep a secret is worth more than all the gold in the world. So here is to the ones who stay. Here is to the ones who fight. And here is to the cold, hard truth. It may hurt when it hits you, but it is the only thing that will set you free. My name is Vanessa Jones. I am single, I am rich, and I am just getting started.